Okay, so this would be a kind of a follow-up and response to a response that was recently posted to me. So there's a guy called Socratic Monologue, and he had just, I don't know, fairly recently posted a response to an old dialogue that To Be Serious and I had done, and he's trying to interrogate the notion of qualia, and is there really value in qualia? Is there something like, and he was using colors, but is there something like that which surpasses objective measure, and isn't it just caught in quagmires of subjectivism and all kinds of problems? And I guess the video at least precipitated for me a desire to say something about it. And I think rather than just address the issue of qualia in terms of colors, I would rather talk a little bit about the problem of the distinction between hearing and seeing, and then maybe move that into a larger discussion of, could it be that reality occurs at multiple levels, and then what does that mean? So I think one can have a robust materialist account, but one's going to have to be very, very sophisticated, because the problems like what are relations and are relations as real as things, how are you going to deal with things like time and different rates of change and levels of abstraction and levels of analysis? See, I think part of the problem is that reality, even if all of reality is, quotes, material, and again, material is like it's a concept, it's an expression that we use. What do we mean when we say all reality is material? Well, I think we mean something like, well, there's nothing supernatural. But it's odd because we're sort of by definition postulating the idea of something called supernatural and then saying it doesn't have any of that. I mean, so there's something very odd about the material-immaterial distinction that gets made. It may be much better to say that there is only one reality, and it's of a single nature, but it's not all at the same level. That reality occurs at multiple levels, and the levels themselves, I guess, are problematically related. That is, it's not just all on a single scale as if it's degrees of magnification, and the different levels are all on a plane of, is it this degree or that degree or this degree of magnification? No, the levels themselves are interlocking, and I'm going to see if I can't explain a little bit more on that, and hopefully I get some response from people about this. Okay, so the one thing about, part of the problem of saying that everything is just reducible to brain states and it's all just nothing more than neurophysiological and chemical responses going on in the brain is that the nervous system and the whole brain is geared into the material world through its senses, and the senses operate very differently. I mean, the senses have very different properties. I mean, not only is the kind of reality and the kinds of relations that the senses are geared into really quite distinct. That is, the properties of photons and light is very different. It's a different speed. It has a whole set of different relations, and a set of relations and a whole different set of properties than sound, which comes through a medium. Its speed changes according to the medium. Sound surrounds you, and just as a very simple example, a sound, you can sometimes be confused about the direction. If it's directly in front of you or directly behind you, you can be confused because of the way sound waves come at the ears. But even if you get the general direction of a sound, you can be unable to identify the exact source of a sound. See, it's so different than a color. A color adheres to the object. I mean, as the light wave is bouncing off the object, reflecting basically all of the light waves except that, particular wave, the color seems to adhere to the object to such a degree that we call a color a predicate of the thing. I'll say the pen is red, and the red is taken to be a predicate of it, whereas sound is taken to be a symptom of an action or activity. And it's not just the permanence of it. I mean, a river continuously murmurs, but it doesn't it's not taken to be the murmur isn't taken to be a predicate of it. It's taken to be a kind of symptom of its ongoing movement and activity. Okay, rather than, let me give you one other example. And then I'm not going to go, I've shot other videos on the differences between the senses. Go dig around, just type do some searching on my channel, and you can find a lot of videos in phenomenology and on the differences between hearing and seeing. But take the example of when you look around, colors, they occupy space in an exclusive way. That is, when you see something, it competes with neighboring objects in such a way that you can't have two colored objects simultaneously co-occupy a given space. That is, they compete with one another. Whereas sound is so different than that. I mean, sound is such that no matter how much sound you have in a room, you can always make room for some more. I mean, sound is very, very different. It has very different properties. Okay, the point here, though, the larger point would be that I guess that sight and sound are different registers of hearing and seeing, and the hearing process and seeing process are kinds of abstracting processes, and the product of the abstracting process seems to be at a different level than that which was abstracted from. There seems to be, again, a kind of multi-leveledness to reality, and it's more than just, I guess, differing rates of change, differing rates of speed, and even different levels of magnification. And we can get to this more clearly when you move to language itself. Now, language is a cultural phenomena, but it's also a natural phenomenon. That is, it's something that it cuts the edge between what we're going to call something that comes out of nature and something that humans do, something that's under conscious control. Speech in a lot of ways is like breath, where it seems to have a kind of autonomy, and it picks up on its own autonomous accord, even independent of intention. You can try to regulate your speech and get some kind of conscious control over the way you're thinking, but in the same way that you can do it with your breathing, as soon as you sort of let go on your conscious directed effort there, it just picks up in little swirls and eddies of cultural currents. The conventional thought just floods your mind in the same way that your breathing just picks up without you. Okay, but the point about levels, okay, I got to get to this and I'll let this go. The point is that when I say that there's different kinds of abstraction, that the abstractions don't all occur at the same level. If I have a pen, and I say the pen is a thing and a pen and a tool, well, I'm really just holding one thing. How can it be those three different levels of abstraction? And even there, they seem like they're at least orders of abstraction. That is, I have a pen, I have the tool and the thing. Now, how about the word pen? Now, how do you fit the word pen onto that level of hierarchy there? See, it seems like the word pen is of a completely different order of abstraction than calling this a pen or dealing with this as a tool or as a thing. See, and this is where, when Bertrand Russell and Whitehead, when they were working so hard to develop the theory of logical types to try to end these history of paradoxes in Western philosophy, as insightful as it is, and it's so important, right? I mean, a class is not to be confused with a member of the class, and you don't want to confuse a thing with the name for the thing. And yet, the more that you try to push Russell into explaining what exactly is the nature of a logical type, that is, what is it that makes one item of a different logical type than another, what is that? Where are these items that are of different logical types? Now, you can sort of see this in questions like, what is a number. Again, mathematics is rich with this. See, because mathematics has different orders of infinity. That is, the order of infinity of counting numbers is actually a lower order of infinity than all the irrational numbers, say, just between 1 and 2. That is, there's higher orders of infinity in mathematics than just one order. And what does that mean? See, I think as soon as you start to get at some of these different properties of consciousness, of language, of the kinds of dynamics that come in through mathematics from careful analysis of the senses, then the issue of qualia sort of washes out. Instead, we need to go to those, what is the nature of the multi-leveled material world that we know and experience. If we grant that it's material, well, where and when are those abstractions, and how do we account for their kind of materiality? Now, I can show you 3 pens, and I can show you 3 paper clips, and I can show you 3 glasses, but I can't really show you 3. All right? I mean, the glasses we can destroy, the paper clips we can destroy, the pens we can destroy, but you can't destroy the number 3. Somehow, when everything disappears, when the world comes to an end, it seems like the concept of 3 won't be no longer true in the way that the stuff to which the words were referring is no longer true because it's no longer here. But 3 as a property was never here in the world. It was a kind of occurrence at a different level of abstraction. It's in the material world, but it's not at the same level as, I guess, those things that we point to around us. Okay, so we get at just a couple more levels here. Okay, I think everyone has seen, I'll see if I can put a link to it, this image of the old woman and the young girl, and you toggle back and forth between those as a sort of gestalt. Now, the medium that's being used, the actual piece of paper that has the inked black and the white that's on it, that's at a level, but those images are occurring at a different level of abstraction. They can't occur at that same level, right? Try to take this statement. This statement is in English. Again, I've talked about this before. This comes from Anthony Wilden. But this statement is in English. When you take a statement like that, if you translate it into any other language, it becomes false, which means that there must be the spatiotemporal medium that's conveying that utterance, and then also the content at a different level of abstraction that is conveyed. That a simple utterance, it has more than one level occurring at it. That's why you can't analyze a communication at the level at which it occurs. And that's his example. This statement is in English. You're actually bobbling around between levels to assess whether or not that's true. Okay. I'm going to give one last example. Okay, and I'm going to try to let this go. Okay, YouTube has put in its new transcription service, and they had an old one before. I have an old video where I tried to make fun of its attempts to transcribe people's speech. I don't think that it can do it. Now, what you get is the physical, material production of speech sounds. They're coming out of my mouth right now. And that is occurring at one level. But the level of I guess, perception, the level of experience, the qualia by which discrete words are recognized amidst that acoustical flow, that is occurring at a different level. It's not at the exact same level. And you can see it by the difficulty that this computer has in recognizing which words are being uttered. And here's what I think the problem is, that the more you speak in cliches, the more that you just use cultural conventions, the more that the computer is likely to pick up and recognize what's being, quote, said and transcribe it. But the more that you use innovative syntax, the more that the kind of grammatical gymnastics that you use are giving evidence of a unique mind that's composing its thought in I guess, a spontaneous, actual way. It's not just rehearsing things it said in big bulk cliches. I guess, as that's happening, the computer's sort of baffled, doesn't know what unit to recognize, and it's partly caught in a momentary now by now transcription of it. Whereas I think people are occurring, consciousness is occurring at multiple levels. So it's like my body is occurring at a certain rate of time, but consciousness seems to be an elongation, a kind of tarrying, an opening that retainingly awaits. And because I can stand in the openness of this kind of retaining that awaits, I can hear someone as they're speaking and, I guess, openly let the words determine themselves in retrospection, sort of as they're echoing down the hallway of my mind. I can determine what words some person was using, but it's through that temporal openness and gathering. It's a disambiguation that occurs in a kind of reaching back that stretches itself along. It's not something that is a piecemeal, one by one accumulation, aggregating. And I think the more that one tries to deal with this issue of, what are the multiple levels of reality? How can reality be all material, but as material be occurring at multiple levels, and multiple levels of abstraction, levels in terms of logical typing levels? I mean, where is a class? If we say that the class is not to be confused with any member of a class, okay, where is any class? We say, well, it's just an abstraction. Well, do abstractions exist in reality? What is the materiality of abstractions? Okay, I'd love to get some response from people. Thank you.